Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Breaking Point Podcast UK. Today we're here with Shad. Is that how you'd like to be called?
Yeah. Most people call me Shad. That's the
Okay,
easiest thing
cool.
to call me. Yeah,
Shad. Perfect. And me and Shad met on Bumble Biz. And to be honest, Shad, I'm not really sure what we're going to talk about because
nor am I, to be
I haven't
honest.
got an
So
Instagram to look at. So we'll just,
yeah,
I don't know, we'll just explore some ideas and stuff and see where it
yeah,
takes us.
sounds good
Give,
to me.
as always, Nice. As always, let everyone know what you think they should know about you to contextualize our conversation best.
I guess there's like three major points. So um, quite highly educated. Went to university, got my master's degree, all of that stuff. Um, I've been homeless, and I've had my own business. So those are like the three major things, and I've kind of seen the kind of not so much the top of the world, but kind of the parts of the world which are
Yeah,
like up there at the top, parts of the world that are down at the bottom, everything in between. So I know kind of like what wealth looks like and what poverty looks like on both sides, like personally and from seeing other people experience it as well, and then how people kind of overcome that. And so one of the things that I kind of do at the moment with a lot of people I talk to is I try to inspire them based on the fact that I've gone through pretty difficult journeys and I'm still coming out on top. Not on top so much at the moment, but it's getting there. It's going in the right direction, and so having that
of
positive
course. Yeah,
mindset as much as possible to kind of continue on a path that you actually want to follow, rather than a path that
yeah,
you're being told to follow. If that makes sense.
yeah. Absolutely. What did you study at uni?
So I did a degree in media, and then I went on to do a degree in business. So that's the simple way to put it, but the actual like degree names are much longer than that. So it's
Yeah, of course.
yeah,
Yeah,
but that's the simple way. So I kind of my business degree is all about kind of starting businesses, growing them, solving problems for business, which I think anyone is capable of doing. And that's another thing that I kind of try and inspire people to do is like that you can just start your own thing, even if it's something on the side. Really push yourself to start something that you genuinely are passionate about and enjoy, because that's way more important than chasing the money, if that makes sense. And
yeah.
I've learned that
Of
through my
course.
own
Yeah,
experiences.
yeah. What was the? I'm doing a bit of interview style questions here, but we'll go with it.
Mhm.
What was the business that you set up?
So initially, I had my own web design agency. So this was just before COVID. Um, that was one of the biggest barriers because once COVID hit, a lot of the clients that I was serving, they were kind of like small restaurants, small businesses on the high
They lost
street, that kind
money.
of
Yeah.
thing. And because they weren't earning any money, there was no money coming in my way, and then that made me kind of lose everything that I had, that I built up to that point. Before that, I've grown up on a council estate, went from that to getting my degrees and staying out of trouble as much as possible,
Yeah.
and not kind of falling victim to the mindset of like, oh, like this is where I've grown up, so this is where I'm always going to be. I kind of kept on seeing that, look, I'm going to chase success no matter what that looks like, and I'm still on that journey now.
Mm. How old
So
are
yeah,
you? How old are you now?
I'm 30 at the moment, so
Okay, nice.
yeah.
And you mentioned was let's start from the beginning. What
Mhm.
was growing up on a council estate like for you? What did it teach
Um,
you?
it's a difficult one to describe because it wasn't that rough when you compare it to some parts of London, where there's like shooting, stabbings, things like that happening every week. It wasn't as rough as that, but what you do see is it was a lot of people kind of had a defeatist mindset. So a lot of
Yeah,
people were kind of defeated before they'd even started. They didn't want to believe that they could achieve anything, and so they and I'm kind of generalizing a little
quit
bit,
before
but
they
those,
started. Yeah,
yeah, they kind of quit before they start, and that was a lot of the people around me where I grew up. There was a few people that weren't like that, and I kind of gravitated as much as I could towards those people, because I felt like they not not particularly because they were going places, but because they didn't defeat themselves in their own mind before trying. And I think that's an important thing that I learned. So just kind of seeing that a lot of the people that I could have been hanging around with were, selling drugs and doing whatever else that they could do to make a bit of money here and there. I
Mm.
could have gone down that route, and I didn't. Chose not to. I'm still friends with them, but it's not quite in that same way as I'm friends with the people that are trying to start businesses and inspire people around around the world. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah. Yes, it's a very, very tricky dynamic to manage the victim and your upbringing, and is a lesser upbringing a is it a hindrance, or can it also be a privilege because it can give you a fire in your belly that someone that hasn't had a lesser upbringing can grow up? It's kind of both, isn't it, really? And some people, they can be squashed so much by their upbringing and they can't really overcome it, and then others like you, it can give an incredible desire to go on and do something, you know, noteworthy. So it's not as simple as being disadvantaged is always an entirely disadvantage. It may mostly be disadvantage, but maybe you can find a small percentage of advantage in the darkness.
So,
Do you get what I mean?
yeah, I mean, something that I'd say is like where at the moment I work in a vape shop, so that's one of my big things that I kind of do. And
Nice.
a lot of the people that kind of come to the shop, they, some of the younger ones, that 18, 19, going up to like 22, a lot of them still don't really know what they want to do with their life, and I think that's fine. Like when you're young, and
Yeah, of
I'm
course.
still in the kind of area that I've grown up in, so I've seen where some of these kids I've seen since they were knee high, growing up down the road and around the town which I live in. And what I'd say is a lot of them again still have that defeatist mindset, but if you actually talk to them and find out what they're interested in and what they'd like to do, you actually see a lot of passion in them. And I think it's about kind of inspiring that passion, because anyone can succeed, like I said before. It's just about how much effort someone's willing to put in. But you need to spark that interest in something. You can't. I think a lot of people
Yeah,
dismiss people that have grown up on council estates before they give them a chance, um, and that automatically that puts them in a negative mindset, because they always feel that they're being looked down on, or not given a chance. But as soon as you actually talk to them and you find out that this person here, they wanted to be a boxer, but there's no boxing gyms for them to go to. So
mm,
you show them where they could go, or you give them a bit of a direction to go, or someone that's been working in labouring jobs or building jobs or whatever else. It doesn't have to be anything great that's going to change the world. It's the fact that some people just choose to give up because no one is giving them the opportunity. And some people,
yeah,
if you give them that little opportunity, they'll run with it and turn it into something
yeah,
bigger. And I think that's the important bit. Is I think as society we need to kind of focus on that a little bit more. Is inspire the people out of the situation they're in and give them reasons to want to fight for more, rather than
mm,
looking at them in a negative light just because of
yeah.
where they've been raised, for example.
Some people receive such little encouragement in life, don't they? They've,
Yeah,
maybe they've almost never heard an encouraging word spoken to them. And as a society now, I definitely think, young men and men are being very much discouraged because everything's being twisted as uh, patriarchal, oppressive construction. So if you encourage young men, you're contributing to that construction structure. So no one encourages them, but it's incredibly detrimental to everyone in the final analysis and in the long run. So yeah, this is what I'm trying to do with the podcast. Really, is sort of
hmm
encourage people because I think that's such an important thing to do,
yeah.
which is
I
obviously
think
what you're doing as
that's why I
well.
wanted to kind of have a chat to you, because that's what I'm trying to start, as well as like my own business and stuff, is Shad Inspires, and that's all about kind of inspiring is not just young men, young women as well, and anyone else, because I'm kind of like part of the LGBT community, and so I speak to a lot of people from all different walks of life, and you have like people that really want to pursue something that they're really passionate about, and they see their identity or where they're from, or the background that their parents are from, as barriers into entry for a lot of these things. And a lot of the time, there
Mm.
might be a little bit of that, but a lot of it is just kind of you know if no one's giving you a chance, then create the chance for yourself. And it's kind of like inspiring people to do that, is create a chance for yourself, because that's what I've had to do. Where you know I did lose my business. I was homeless for a good like 6 months before I actually managed to get anywhere to live. Like I was sofa surfing and then had a place, and then I'm sofa surfing again now. So it's happened twice.
Wow.
But I'm not going to give up on it. I'm not going to give up on the goals that I have. I'm not just going to clock out and say, well, that's it. I've had drug problems in the past where instead of focusing on my problems, I was smoking away my life. And that's something that I've given up about 6 months ago. Um, and when I look back at it, I think that a lot of people, they kind of use these vices and things like that to mask over the issues. It's like putting a plaster over a like massive wound,
Yeah, of
if that makes
course.
sense. And like we say with mental health, I think that's what a lot of people tend to do, is that they put plasters over these massive wounds instead of actually focusing on the problem and trying to figure out how to solve them. Um, a lot of it, like I do think people need some help, but a lot of it comes from within. It's that self growth that will take you further than anything else, and that's the journey that I've gone on, and it's working so far for me. And that's kind of
Mm.
what I'm inspiring other people to do as well.
Yeah. Well, you're certainly uh, very. You have a good basis for inspiring people, and a good story, and a good, uh, admirable ethos behind you, given what's happened. So that's a very important start. When so what's it? What was it like sofa surfing? Because it's something that I can't relate to, or
Okay.
have no
Um,
experience in.
I would say I'm kind of lucky. I've got friends that I do. Um, if I didn't,
Yeah,
then I would be street homeless right now, and that's a completely different aspect of life, that I've
yeah,
not experienced to the level that some people have. Um, there was a couple of days when I had nowhere to stay, um, in between when my friends that I'm staying with at the moment were on holiday for a while, um, and I actually ended up in a place that I didn't really want to be, because there was nowhere else for me to go. I didn't have any money to my name, so there was no way for me to book a hotel. Um, you kind of you call all these services and charities, and a lot of the time they're so overbooked that they can't afford to
mm,
help you, and it just kind of
yeah,
makes you feel like you're not you don't deserve to be part of society, because you've let yourself get into this, like, you kind of put it all back on yourself. I think that's what I did. So I put it all back on myself, and sometimes you do have to take responsibility for it. It's like, well, if I had just not spent all this money over here doing these things that, although enjoyable, they weren't really necessary, then maybe I would have been okay, and I could have paid my rent on time, and I could have, you kind of overthink a lot of the things. It's not
yeah. Of
always
course.
it's not always someone else's fault. It's sometimes it is your own fault, and you kind of have to reflect within, and see what you're doing to yourself. Um, but I would say like the sofa surfing experience, like, you kind of always feel like you're never secure. Like I say, I'm lucky to have the friends that I do, because I am pretty
Mm,
secure with them. But it's not 100% where I would like to be, or where they would like me to be as well. Not because they
no,
don't want
of
me here. It's
course.
more kind of like they want to see me succeed. They want to see me pursue the things that I want to pursue. Um, and I think having those friends there, and understanding that, like, this isn't a forever thing. This is going to move on to something better. They that's kind of kept my spirits up. But just sofa surfing, like not having your own space. Like I'm sleeping on a sofa where the kitchen's just over there, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's like it's not a. is not the ideal situation, but it's better than being
No.
out in the cold on the streets.
Yeah, of
So
course.
you kind of have to be grateful for what you have, but then also pursue finding something more because this isn't how people should live lives. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. To not having a hub or a place to retreat to is quite an important aspect. And you seem like quite a maybe slightly more introverted, quiet person. So having your own space would be extra important for you. And I'm like that as well, to be fair. Whereas if you're someone who's highly extroverted, can just just go from place to place, people to people, and they'll never get tired of it. They'll lap it up. But uh, other people who are less inclined that way need to recharge. So I can imagine that's pretty difficult.
It's a bit of a strange
So
one because with the day job that I do, I have to be quite extroverted. So when I'm out
yes,
at work, it's kind of like 5 days out of the week, um, I'm out and about talking to lots of different people, and the 2 days off that I have, I kind of close in within myself because
yeah,
I've done so much socializing, I just can't do anymore. So I
yeah,
need like time to do my own thing, like you say.
absolutely,
So
yeah. That's very common. There are loads of people out there who are more naturally introverted, but they've developed a good extroverted muscle that they use, but then they always need to uh, come back and recharge at the end of the day. So you said that you were. Did you say that you were a part of the LGBTQ community, or did
mhm.
you say something
Yeah.
along those lines?
So
Do you want to go into that a bit?
um, so I identify as bisexual, and when I came out to my family, I kind of got like a big disconnect from a lot of my family.
Yeah,
So because of that, that's why I'm kind of stuck in between places where, like, a lot of the time you might find our family can look at you, but
damn.
my family doesn't really want to associate because of the way that I'm happy to identify. Um, so, a lot of disconnect there. And I suppose, like, that it just kind of like I say this to a lot of people is being unapologetically yourself is more
Hmm.
important than being fake in front of people and hiding behind a mask, if that makes sense. So
Of
I think
course, yeah,
that's made me happy, even though I'm in quite a rough situation. It's made me happier knowing that I can be myself no matter what around the people that I've chosen to keep around me. Um,
yes,
where like like I say, I think a lot of people see these things as barriers because I'm from this community or I'm from that community, therefore it's a barrier into the kind of work that I want to do or the kind of place that I want to live in. And I don't think that's necessarily true. It's a lot of it is in people's head. If that makes sense. I'm not saying that
yeah,
issues in society don't exist. They do. Like there are people that are homophobic. There are people that are racist. These things do exist, but a lot of people kind of over evaluate a lot of these things. Um, Even when you're looking at like, I'd say one of the biggest things is like the men's mental health thing that you were talking about earlier. Um, it, it is a massive thing, and I personally have gone through days where like all the things that I've gone through, I have wanted to not be alive anymore. There's been times when
yeah,
that's happened, but I've not gone to the doctor to discuss it or gone and got help from mental health services or anything like that. I've kind of depended on my friends to help me out with that, and their
yeah,
answer was, "Hey, why don't you come join us at the gym?" Um, and that's one thing that's massively helped. And I know like there's a lot of people that talk about people like Andrew Tate saying all the crazy things that he does, or some of the other influencers in that space. Um, and a lot of what they say is correct. They might say it in the wrong way, but
yeah,
spending time going to the gym and stuff like that, and spending time kind of fixing your diet, all of these things help so much more to kind of
100%.
alleviate how depressed I was. than going to a doctor and them giving you a pill to take once a day or 3 times a day or whatever it may be. Um,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest things, is that just having that right mindset changes so many things, and it doesn't happen overnight. It took me about 3 or 4 months to get to this place where I'm happy to talk about it openly outside of my friend group.
Yeah.
Um, but it's kind of like, if you're constantly looking for excuses to make, you'll keep on finding those excuses, and it will
Mm.
keep on making you feel down, if that makes sense. Um,
Absolutely.
Whereas if you actually start making these small changes over time, you'll find that those small changes will eventually make you happier, more stable as a person. Um, that's what I found personally. So
Yeah. And you're right. I think a great tool to for anyone who feels slightly depressed to implement is to almost do an audit on your life and look at every aspect of your day-to-day life. Look at the things that you repeat on a daily basis and attempt to judge and discern if they are uh, beneficial in the long run, or if they're beneficial in the short term, or if they're just completely useless and futile, and just attempt to work out and pull apart what you're doing that is helping you and what you're doing that may be making you feel worse, and then simplify things and take it from there. So I completely agree.
I think one of the things that I did when I went homeless the last time, like when I moved back in with my friends here, um, that I kind of had to have a really hard discussion with myself, and that's
Yeah.
what it is. You're having a discussion with yourself, and you're deciding whether what you're doing is the right path for yourself. So it doesn't necessarily matter what it is, but I think that everyone kind of needs to spend time to do this, is writing down the things that are keeping them happy, the things that are keeping them sad, and then finding ways to replace those things that are keeping them down with things that are going to uplift them. For me, it's always been learning and personal development. Like
Yeah.
I started reading books again recently, like probably about 3 months ago, and I'm not reading like fictional books. I'm reading things that are, is it fiction, non-fiction? I always forget which way around it is. But
Non-fiction is fact
yeah,
and things.
non-fiction. That's what I'm reading. So all the stuff that's kind of like, okay, well, how do I do business the
Educational,
right
yeah.
way? Um, how do I fix my schedules? How do I learn how to do my taxes properly on my own? Like little
Yeah.
things like that. Like in the UK, we don't have to do that so much, but in the US, they probably do. But that's what I'd say, is like looking at these books and looking at sources of knowledge, just things that you're just passionate about or interested in, no matter what it may be. There's going to be a book out there for it, or there's going to be a podcast about it somewhere. And being able to just clock into those things and cut out the reality TV and smoking weed and sitting on the computer for 6 hours a day playing a game, that doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily, it's fun when you're young, or when you've got no responsibilities to look after. But when you've got to move into a better stage of your life, you have to cut a lot of things out. You have to have those discussions with yourself to say, well, I can't afford to eat out twice a week. I can't afford to go drinking with these friends. I can't sit on the computer for 4 hours a day playing League of Legends, instead of sitting there
Yeah.
and like reading something, or putting together my new business plans, or networking with people that are going to help me along this path. A lot of that is more important to me now than it's ever been before, because I see like myself being successful going forward. Um, like I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there. And it's that little
Yeah.
kind of, I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there. And then boom, one day it seems like overnight success. It's like that whole, you see a lot of these things like the motivationals on Instagram and things like that, and it's like they kind of resonate with me quite a lot, because like I say, that self growth, self development has helped so much over the last few months, to get me to where I am now. Still need to practice talking on camera, but we're getting
No,
there.
no, you're doing great. You're
Yeah,
not stuttering or anything. You're
yeah,
doing brilliantly. Yeah, that's I feel like that's possibly where the notion of praying originated from. The notion of being alone with your thoughts and saying, what can I do to stop feeling like this, or what can I do to feel like this instead? And the whole point is that there's a part of your brain or your psyche or your spirit that will, if you listen to it, will dish up some answers to you. And, like everything nowadays, the act of praying has become sort of twisted and maligned into, oh, I wish I had a fast car. I wish I had a Lamborghini, and then
yeah,
I've got it. And what it really means is, if you really want to pray for a Lamborghini, you go, I really want a Lamborghini. And then you let your brain, and I suppose the wisdom of the past, help you, aid you in that process. It's akin to manifestation, I suppose. And I'm not going to reduce everything to logic and reason, because very that would be a conceit, that would be arrogant, that would be ignorant. But I think that's what praying was originally supposed to be. It's like, there's a line in the Bible that says, ask and you shall receive, knock and the door shall open, and something else. And people think that's ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. But asking doesn't mean I'd quite like that. It means you really have to want it and you really have to ask for it. And then if you make the correct sacrifices, then maybe you'll get it if you
yeah.
need it, not just want it.
I think that's an interesting way to look at it, because like no matter what religion you look at, or what, even if you're looking at outside religion, just ideologies that lots of people have, like spiritual
Yes,
paths that people take. A lot of people have this notion of, like, the law of attraction, for example, is you keep asking for something and you'll get it. It's not just asking for something; it's also putting the work in towards it. It's a bit of both. Like, you have to
exactly.
really believe in yourself and believe that
You do.
something is going to be possible before you start working on something. Because when you don't have faith in yourself, you're basically, you're doomed to fail from the start. I feel, not for everyone, but I think a lot of people, not having those self doubts is good, but knowing that you are capable of achieving anything is is more important. Like, doubt
Yeah,
yourself where it matters, but believe in yourself where it matters as well. And I think a lot of people
100%.
don't do that, and that's why
Yeah,
a lot of people fail along the way. But a thing on failure, like, again, a lot of the podcasters and things that I watch, like, you probably watch like things like Diary of a CEO, like Stephen Bartlett, things like that. And a
yeah,
lot of what they say is failure is not, like, a lot of people talk about success quite a lot, but they don't talk about failure, and the fact that failure is like the path to success. You fail up
yeah,
every time you make a mistake. You kind of say, okay, I've made this mistake. This is what I've learned from it. The next time you don't make that same mistake. You might make another one, but that you're just learning along the way. And eventually, one of these things is going to be so successful that you're not going to be thinking about those past failures anymore, because you've learned from them all and you've created something better. And so that's
100%.
the way that I'm looking at it with business going forward. The things that I'm doing, or the way that I manage my finances now, is very different to how I was managing them 5 years ago, because I was making
Yeah,
silly mistakes 5 years ago, whereas now I'm a bit more, like, I'd say, frugal with my spending. I try my best to be a lot more frugal.
yeah,
So little things like that. So I've made mistakes, but I'm accepting that those mistakes were mine. I'm not trying to blame anyone else for those mistakes. Even the failure of my business, COVID happened. It was something that was out of anyone's control, really. Um,
mm,
but
in
the thing that I
theory.
did have in my, well, yeah, in theory, the thing that I did have in my control was I could have pivoted my business sooner. Knowing what was happening in the world, I could have pivoted my target
Yeah,
market and tried to aim for different types of customers. So that's me reflecting on the failures and saying, well, if I had done this slightly differently, then I would have done better. And so the next time I do this, I'm going to make sure that I set it up in a way that I won't fail again because of that reason. Um, so I think that's how I see failure, and yeah, it's important to see it as a learning opportunity rather than letting it get you down.
Yeah. Anything in life that you truly work at and you truly believe in, even if it fails, you'll learn something. Like I really believe that you can learn an awful lot from any single job that you find yourself in, even if you're, you know, scanning shopping at Sainsbury's. You have to interact with people. You've got to manage things. Like there isn't a single job or almost single behavior that you can do in life that won't teach you something that can be beneficial in a different context other than the one that you learned it. Obviously it's on a scale, and some are more extrapolable, or they can be extrapolated to more uh, aspects of life, but there's always knowledge and wisdom to be learned in anything that you do. So you're right, failure isn't really failure, it's just redirection, and you're actually making yourself stronger as long as you have the right mindset. That's the key, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
that's
the
such a
key.
cliche,
Is
but it's true.
a lot of people don't believe in it. They don't believe that mindset can change a lot of things. It's like what's an easy one to describe? People that say that they're not a morning person. So that's one of the first things that went out the window when I started going to the gym, because I work 10 hours a day, so I don't have time to go in the evenings because I don't get home until 9 p.m. On public transport. So it takes me an hour to get home, an hour to go to work. So I had to shift my clock and wake up earlier. Um, and that's a mindset shift in itself, is just changing your schedule from waking up at 8:45 to get ready in 5 minutes and jump out the door and go straight on the bus to work, waking up,
Mm.
2 hours earlier so that I can fit in a workout in the morning. Just doing that has improved my mindset so much. And even just going to the gym, as an example, is that the way that that health kick kind of changes your body,
Yeah,
changes your mindset, because you're eating different, because your blood's flowing differently through your body. It changes so much that you become more positive by doing it. And I think a lot of people are scared of what that looks like for them. They don't know if they're capable of doing it, and so they never start. And that's the biggest problem, is getting people started to get into those mindsets. There's too many people at the top of the food chain, so shall we say, that have gone through this journey already, and they're showing the end result, but they never show the steps that they took to get there, or the true starting point. They show the fantasy story almost, but they don't show the
yeah,
the dark days and the hard things that they've gone through. They might touch on it, but they never really talk about it. And I think if more people saw that, then they'd be like, oh well, I've actually gone through something exactly like that, and if they can do it, then why can't I do it? And that's the mindset that I started having when listening to all these podcasts. And you hear Stephen Bartlett talking about sleeping on sofas and being homeless, but now he's a billionaire and he's been on Dragon's Den. It's like, well, if he can do it, then surely I can as well,
he's not
because
a
he started
billionaire.
like that. He is a billionaire, actually. Yeah,
Stephen Bartlett's a billionaire.
yeah,
No
he's a
way.
billionaire now. Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's his net worth across all his companies is over 1 billion, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, and also I'm going to do a video on this. There's a line in the Bible that says, "To those that have everything, more will be given, and from those that have nothing, everything will be taken."
Mm,
And what it means is that the more and more you get in life, the the more and more you get in life. So it's like a goes up and up and up and up and up.
yeah,
And anyway, I'm not thinking. Ignore me.
Okay.
It says here that it's six. It says that here that it's. Oh, there's a few different things.
He's got like
One says
4 or 5 different companies at the moment, plus
one
his
says
podcast.
600 million.
Yeah,
One says 68 million, and one says mm, yeah, 600 million is the highest I've seen.
yeah.
He wouldn't be doing his podcast if he was a billionaire. Why would you be doing a
Well,
podcast if you
you
were a billionaire?
you think that, but there's another person I follow. His name's Simon Swift, and you'd see him. He walks around London and talks to random people. There's loads of TikTok videos out there, and he is a billionaire, as or so he says. I'm not going to say yes or no to that. I believe he is, but he seems like a very nice person. And he walks around asking people what their dreams are, and then offering them 5 grand to quit their jobs and pursue
Oh,
their
I've seen
dreams.
that. Yeah,
And you look at something like that, like why do certain people do certain things? And I feel like there's certain people in this world that want to change the world for the better, and there's certain people in this world that want to take as much as they can get and store it
yeah,
and hold it for as long as they can. So you've got people like Stephen Bartlett who, through his podcast, he is making more money. There's no doubt about it that when he's got certain guest speakers on, he's getting hundreds of thousands of views. He's making some money on those, but it's not the money aspect that he's looking at. He's looking at inspiring other people to take a path and
yeah,
to kind of grow themselves and to learn from these people that have written amazing books or created amazing companies. So
yeah,
that's what I see from him. Like, why would he be doing a podcast if he's got X amount of money? Well, because he sees it as a way to spread this knowledge that he's gained, and him having
yeah,
access to all these great people around the world gives him that power to kind of share that knowledge. Whereas me and you, kind of starting out at this level, we don't have that access to billionaires or to
yeah.
people that have written books about whatever subject that they're experts in. We can't call those people and
Best-selling
be like,
authors.
"Hey, do you wanna come and speak on our podcast?" There's no way for us to do
Yeah.
that yet, but one day maybe.
Not yet.
Not yet. That's
Yes,
it. Exactly. See, that's
definitely.
that's the mindset that you need.
One day, definitely. Yeah, no, you are right. And, there's only so far that hedonism and pleasure and seeking can only get you so far in life. And that's why so many people reach that breaking point of exploiting it to the absolute maximum. And then they just switch and they go the complete extreme opposite, which is to spread as much uh, enlightenment and knowledge as they possibly can. And I don't think that is Stephen Bartlett's. That's not Stephen Bartlett's backstory, to be fair.
Mm.
But he is. I do really, really like him, and I'm very glad that he's as successful as he is. Although the fact that his podcast is so successful annoys me a little bit, because not because it's not good, but because he already had an existing. There's, as I said, the line in the Bible: "To those that have everything, more will be given." So
Yeah.
if you already have an existing fan base, the chances of you things grow up exponentially. But fair play to him. But he is very good, and everyone that watches his content benefits nonetheless. So
I think
yeah,
that's one of the biggest things that I started doing is while I've been kind of working on all my business plans and putting presentations and making my new website and all of these things, I've always got a podcast up on in the background. Um, so
mm,
where before it might have been Netflix or some anime or something,
yeah,
that's just kind of there numbing your brain in the background while you're working away. It's now something that I'm actually taking in more information, and it's almost like multitasking. Like it's in the background and I'm listening to it, but it's calm enough that it's not distracting me from my work. It's actually helping me with it
yeah,
in a way. Um, so
yeah. No, you're right. There's when you can watch Netflix, you possibly should be listening or watching a podcast, wouldn't you? I mean, it depends. If your brain is really like dead, then maybe not. But if not so, then maybe a podcast is a better option. Right. What can we? What other questions have I got? What else is there to talk about? Have you got anything you want to talk about? You got any topics that you want to discuss, that you're willing to discuss, that you're interested in, that I might have an
Um,
opinion on?
what would I go through? So I would say maybe potentially. What's your opinion on? Um, we were talking about like the men's mental health thing earlier, and I would say there's a lot of role models out there that are great role models that don't really get seen so much because the ones that are, let's say,
Who do you
bad
think they
role
are?
models. Um, See, I would say, like people like Stephen Bartlett, people like Simon Swift, the other person I follow. There's a couple of the ones like in the fitness realm, like the owner of Gymshark, for example. If you look into his story and
Yeah,
what he's done, he's pretty inspirational as well as a person and as a leader, and he's quite young. So
he's very
it's
dry
like,
though.
yeah, he's quite dry, but he's an inspiration at the same time. He's That's
Yes,
what
he
I would
is.
say.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and then you look at the other side of it, where you've got people like Andrew Tate and the people that kind of gravitate towards him. Um, what would you say is like? How do we find a balance between that? Like, what's the balance? Because I think some of that negativity that's kind of come into the world through all of these things happening is not going to disappear for a long time. It's going to take a while. But how do we combat that? The negativity and replacing it with positivity.
What a question! What a question! Well, the first thing I'd say is that in life there is definitely some utility in having that sort of narcissistic belief in yourself that Andrew Tate has. That's just the reality. I work with a lot of. I work with in a primary school. I've worked in education since I was 18, so since for like 6 years or whatever. And I the squashing young boys' independence and sort of fuck youedness is quite dangerous actually, because I think there is real benefit as men to have an element of that in many aspects of life, and I don't
A
think
bit
the
of bravado.
alternative,
A bit of
a
bravado.
bit of bravado, yeah, I
Yeah.
exactly that's the right word,
Yeah.
bravado. A bit of bravado is absolutely necessary, because otherwise you'll get pushed around and squashed in the masculine world, um, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, who knows, bit of both.
Mm.
And but I would say the reason Andrew Tate's so popular is because there has been an attack on masculinity, and a lot of men feel disenfranchised, and they feel sort of semi-castrated based on the modern era that we live in. And he is someone that's come along, and he's successful
He's
in
super.
theory, every aspect of sort of hedonistic success, not proper. It's there's different forms of success, but you know what I mean in terms of he was an incredibly
Yeah.
successful fighter. Money, women, and now I suppose fame, and especially young men who have no male role models and spend their entire time being fed messages that men are evil, and they'll think, well, fuck you then. I'm going to follow him because he's telling me the opposite.
Mm.
And just Jordan Peterson used a good phrase. He said, and the Andrew Tate phenomena is a bit like the phenomena of an aggressive rapper. And he is a bit like an aggressive rapper, Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
He's got that sort of feel about him. And then speaking of Jordan Peterson, I think he's someone that young men definitely should align themselves with, because I think he is kind of a far more morally intelligent version of Andrew Tate. Although that's not even fair to compare the two, because they're completely
No.
Andrew Tate's just some guy that says a lot of bullshit and is very clever, whereas Jordan Peterson has got incredible experience and he's had a career in clinical psychology for like 20, 30 years, and he's lectured at the top
Yeah.
universities, and he's spoken to incredible people. Andrew Tate's just some extroverted, creative, intelligent, disagreeable guy who says a lot
He
of
knows how to get people talking. That's what it is.
yeah,
He
yeah.
knows how to
He's
be
a
controversial.
salesman. He's a
Um,
sleazy salesman at the end of the day.
and I think like
Um,
that part of that though is he's learned how to sell himself, whether for the better or for the worse. He's learned how to sell himself in a way that gets people talking. And even Jordan Peterson, some of the things that he says are or can be seen as quite controversial in certain circles.
of course,
Um,
yeah,
and that controversy, that getting people to think, I think you need controversy to do that.
you do.
You can't get people
Brilliantly
to
said.
talk.
Yeah,
You can't, yeah, until you have those controversial conversations. It's not gonna go anywhere. The world's not gonna change by people just agreeing with each other constantly at all times.
I
It's
really
only
like
going to
that.
change when people are ready to stand up for what they believe in, ready to say, well, no, I disagree with what you're saying. I
Yeah,
don't agree with this person saying, and that's why I think like I actually quite like Andrew Tate because regardless of what he says, regardless of whether his success is shown off in flashy cars and having models all around him and things like that, that's not really the bit that I'm looking at. I'm looking at the bit that says, you know what, he's done this and he's telling other people that you can have it all too. Um, and it's giving a bit of kind of hope. That's what it is. It's hope
yeah,
marketing. That's what he's done. He's created this whole like agenda of boys need someone to look up to, and if it's not going to be the people that's saying you can just give up and sit in your room and play video games all day and no one's going to care. Like that's what the majority of the world is saying to them is we don't care about your problems. We don't care about what you want to do. We don't care about whether you're going to succeed because you guys have like men have succeeded all their lives, right? So throughout society, men have succeeded. So we want to give someone
yeah.
else a chance. What about the women? What
Succeeded.
about the people?
Yeah. Why don't you tell
Yeah,
that to the miners
um,
that died, or the people that
yeah,
died in war? Such
exactly, right.
bullshit,
And
honestly.
it's bullshit, right? And that's what I mean. It's like, well, if these people had someone that was positive that came out and said, look, well, we may have succeeded, but we can't just stop there. We've got so much further to get. And a lot of the kind of much smarter scholars out there, the ones that look at some of the stuff that Andrew Tate said, will say the same things as him, but in a different way. That's what I
Absolutely,
find.
yeah,
They'll say exactly the same thing. Like, look, you should be able to stand on your own 2 feet. You should be strong. You should go to the gym. You should be able to command a presence when you enter a room. Um, like people should look at you and think, what's that guy all about? Why do people listen to what he has to say? And not everyone's got that quality, but it's a skill that you can learn. Um, I put it this way: like this time last year, when I was homeless the first time, it was after a pretty bad breakup, and at that point in my life, I was pretty much at the lowest point I'd ever been. I had no
yeah,
confidence in myself. I would not have been able to like message you and be like, "Hey, could I talk on your podcast?" That would not have happened this time last year
yeah,
because my confidence wasn't there, and a lot of that came back through getting out of my comfort zone, which is again something that Andrew Tate and a lot of these other scholars will talk about. Well, Andrew Tate's not a scholar, but some of like Jordan Peterson and some of the other
yeah,
people talking about getting out of your comfort zone, doing things that will be uncomfortable at first, but as you do them more and more, you get used to them, and then you're like, well, that wasn't so bad. I think one of the biggest quotes actually, like
exactly,
about
yeah,
6 months ago, that my friend who I actually live with, he's just in the other room, and he said this to me when I was kind of making excuses for why I should or shouldn't go to the gym. It was like I think it was The Rock that quoted it. It was like it's either day one or one day. So do you choose to do something one day, or do you choose to make today the first day that you do it? And as soon as I got that into my head,
Mm.
it kind of all started kicking off in the right direction. You
Yeah.
can wait forever and nothing will ever change, but as soon as you start making those little changes, you're always gonna see a positive effect. And you know, taking the risk, taking the chance is going to get you further than sitting there and saying, "No, I can't do it." And so, where this time last year, like I say, I wouldn't have had the confidence to come on camera and speak to someone about all of these things. I've got to the point now where I can do it because instead of saying, "Oh, there's no way I can appear on a podcast," I'm just saying, well, "You know what? Screw it. Why not? Let's just do it." Like, what's the
Yeah.
worst that can happen? Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
No. And I really think that this sort of this is I feel like a lot of people don't think like this, but talking about your past, you know, I've seen it in you as we've been talking. Sometimes you've gone, you've taken a big sigh, and that's a nervous system response of like processing something. And it's so important to talk about things because people think that we arrange ourselves through thinking, but we actually don't, because thinking's really difficult to do. We arrange ourselves through talking to other people, and then that's how we improve our ability to think, is by talking more. And that's how we, you know, because you need to be able to say something out loud and hear it, and then track back what you've said and sort of and reorientate yourself based on what you said. So talking about your past is a really important thing to do, which is why you know I hope that speaking like this is, you've taken something away from it and it's helped you in some way, because that's another one of the main reasons why I do it. It doesn't just help the people listening, doesn't just help me, but it also helps the person talking, which I think people don't consider when they think about podcasts.
so something else that I'll say with that whole concept as well is something when I was studying um, in business, you find a lot of businesses they want you to be an independent person that's doing like let's say 10 people's jobs all by
Mm.
yourself for very little money these days, if I'm really honest.
Yeah,
But what I would say is like where creativity happens, where big ideas come together, or where changes that will actually help you as a person or to get somewhere in life. Where it happens is, like you say, when you're talking to someone and you experience something, or you might say you've got an idea and you take it to your friend, and then that friend might have an idea that latches onto your one, and that's how
exactly.
things are
Yeah,
built in the real world. No one has ever
100%.
created something massive by sitting on their own, working on their own, doing something like whether you look at someone like Jeff Bezos who's built Amazon from the ground up, you hear the fancy story of he was sitting in his garage
Garage. Yeah,
and he built it from his garage. Well, it wasn't just him. I guarantee there was 6 or 7 other people in that garage with him, and they
yeah,
probably don't get talked about as much as he does because that's the
yeah. Of
story that
course.
Amazon's trying to sell. So
Mm.
it's that's always going to be that way.
Good point.
You look at Apple and any other company, it's all the same. There's you've got a figurehead, but you've got people that have helped that figurehead along the way. So where talking helps is no matter what it may be, like dealing with mental health or starting a business or whatever it may be, talking about things is what gets your brain to start making connections to different things. And that's what we studied when I was at university. That's one of the major concepts of you put together a team, you kind of you complement each other's skills. So if I'm not good at something, I'll find someone that is good at that thing and then bring them in so that I can work together with them and create something better. Um,
Yeah,
and it's in the same vein, like if you struggle with mental health issues, like if you struggle with sitting alone, talking to someone is the best thing you can do because you're not alone. Then you've got someone to talk to. But as soon as you're sitting in one place and you're left to your own devices and you keep thinking, how do I solve these problems? It just makes you feel worse and worse about yourself. As soon as you've had that chance to talk to someone, you start feeling like you've let a load off your shoulders almost.
yeah. That it's. I've written a blog post about
My thoughts
why
can
you
be
should
really
talk.
messy, by the way. So
Oh no, it's fine. No, that wasn't messy
yeah,
at all. That was great.
yeah,
I've written a blog post about why you should listen to people that you should disagree with. And there's a thing, right? So if you put your hand out in front of you and you move it slowly, if you watch it, it will kind of jump and judder. You can't do it smoothly. If you do it fast, you can move it pretty smoothly. But if you do it slowly, it will judder along. Whereas
yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah,
if you get your other hand and push against it, then you can move it far more smoothly.
smoothly. Yeah,
And the reason is because there's a force acting against it. So we have no idea how important, we underestimate the importance of having a force acting against you, and how magic can occur when there's a force in theory acting against you. When you're lifting weights, your resistance training is, there's a force acting against you, and that's where the magic occur, magic, that's where the benefit occurs because of the resistance. If I just do that, there's no resistance, so there's no growth.
no,
So it's the resistance that creates the growth. um, and we kind of we inherently know that to some degree, but not completely. So people that you disagree with are important people to have around, which is not spoken about in the modern era. It's the complete opposite.
actually, you know what? It's not just people that you disagree with. I would say it's people that will give you the truth no matter what. So
Yes.
that's what I would say is more important. It's because if you're always around people that disagree with you, disagreements and um, let's say criticism. So disagreement and
Yeah.
criticism are two different things. If you're
Yeah.
always around people that disagree with you, then you're always going to be constantly battling them. So I'd say
Yeah.
it's probably
That's
better to
true.
call it criticism. You've got to have people around you that are willing to tell you the uncomfortable things that you don't want to tell yourself. Because sometimes you might think, "Oh, I've got this really great idea," and this is something like with the marketing agency that I'm building at the moment, the thing that I'm trying to put together. I spoke to a couple of my friends who told me, "Oh, that sounds really great." They didn't look at it from a perspective of these are all the things that could go wrong. But one of my friends does do that. He'll sit there and go through all the things that could go wrong, and
Yeah.
I don't see him as shitting on my idea. It's more
No.
him caring that I am successful and making sure that I have thought about these things that I may
Yeah.
not have thought about. So I think that's important, is being able to take criticism and take it as a positive, not as a negative. Being able to convert it into a positive. A lot of people can't do that. As soon as you criticize someone's idea and what they're doing, they instantly kind of close up within themselves or become defensive. You've got to learn to
Yeah.
never be defensive when taking criticism. Some people will just be mean for no reason, and you can disregard that. But some people genuinely care about your success, and those are the people that are going to criticize you the most. Those are the people that are going to tell you things you don't want to hear,
Yeah.
and you need that in your life. You can't grow without knowing the things that you don't want to hear.